Well, it's obvious that we're in the midst of abrupt climate change. This is a phenomenon with historical precedents in Earth's history, not in human history, because we just showed up a relatively short while ago. But abrupt climate change was a completely different thing than the sort of Al Gore, inconvenient truth, linear climate change that most of us are familiar with. That version focuses on carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. At this point, we have every reason to be very concerned, not only about carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And I remember when 350.org was formed and the big mission was to get down below 350 parts per million, inspired by James Hansen's work. But James Hansen actually said that 300 parts per million was probably a more reasonable target. And now we're at 400, and nobody on Earth right now will ever experience anything less than 400 parts per million carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And we've also got a bunch of methane up there in the atmosphere. And there's a handful of other greenhouse gases as well, chlorofluorocarbons, ozone, and so on. So, it's not just that we are not turning this ship around. It's that we are pedal to the metal, trying to make the ship go as fast as we can, and it's been going down for a while. So I'd say at this point in planetary history, the human species is in serious trouble. It was late June 1989 that Noah Brown, the lead official for the New York office of the United Nations Environment Program, said that we have about 10 years to fix the carbon dioxide problem, to fix climate change, or the thing is going to spin out of human control. Well, that means somewhere around June of 1999, things spun out of human hands, spun out of our ability to control it. And that was, if I'm doing the math, that was a little over 17 years ago. So I would say at this point it's reasonable to conclude that the situation has spun out of human hands, it's spun out of human control, and that we are facing extremely dire straits in the not too distant future. Methane in the atmosphere being clearly triggered at an exponential rate instead of just bubbling along, so to speak, with a relatively small amount of methane in the atmosphere. And bear in mind that at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, about 1750, there were about 750 parts per billion methane in the atmosphere. And now there's about 2,000 parts per billion in the atmosphere. So I suspect he was talking about it becoming apparent that methane release into the atmosphere had gone exponential. That 500 days, if I recall correctly, ended last year about this time. So it's behind us. We're going downhill. We are picking up speed. We are stomping on the accelerator. The faster we go, the more ground we cover. Not only that, but we're picking up weight along the way. And so it's a self-reinforcing feedback loop. We have become the torpedo aimed at our own heads, the Gatling gun aimed at the human species. So it's pretty evident that we have past the proverbial tipping point. In fact, more than 6 of those tipping points. And that now the situation is truly out of our hand. In fact, if we ceased all industrial activity right now, right in the middle of this radio show, if we ceased industrial activity right now, the amount of global dimming that would be lost by stopping putting the particulates up into the atmosphere, most notably things like sulfates. Those aerosols constantly fall out of the sky. In somewhere around 3 days to 3 weeks, the planet would warm up quite catastrophically, would warm up about 3 degrees Celsius above where we're at now in a very, very short period of time. So it's pretty obvious that we're dealing not only with one particular catastrophe, but that we're in the midst of a perfect storm of multiple interacting catastrophes, from ionizing radiation spewing all over the globe to abrupt climate change to depletion of what we tend to think of as our God-given right, those resources like oil and gas and so on. So we have all of this going on at the same time. Meanwhile, we're in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, the 6th major extinction event on planet Earth. And according to the senior author of the paper in Science Advances, reporting on the sixth great extinction, which came out in 2015, the senior author Gerardo Ceballos said that our species would likely be among the first to go in this mass extinction event. So we have all kinds of phenomena going on right now that point to nothing but bad news for our favorite species, and they all interact with each other. You know, there's a sixth mass extinction, ionizing radiation, abrupt climate change, on and on. The spoiling of the air and fouling of the water, and on the list goes. None of it looks good to me. I don't see any attribute of industrial civilization that is actually making for more habitat for our species on the planet, much less the other species that we depend upon for our own existence. So, at this point, I would say to call things dire would be the understatement of the year, at least. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as I can.